All right, my friends, good morning. It's time for the hands-free drive to work. You know you can keep your hands on the wheel and at the very same time have a conversation about steering yourself through the weeds of work. Steering yourself is the concept of self-management, and though that's not a very popular term, we all know the concept. We all know the concept of self-management. Every leadership book I've ever read says you can never learn to lead others until you first learn to lead who? That's right, yourself. And so we all know we have to learn to lead ourselves, and that concept of self-leadership or self-management is the term that we're talking about. It helps us steer ourselves through all of the frustrations and disappointments of work. And we said if we're going to do that well, then what we have to learn to do is make our next wise move. We know that risk management, what I've been doing for the last 12 years, is very much like self-management. We look into the future, we try to determine the things that we know and the things that we cannot know. And then we say, today, what's my next wise move? And there's the same thing in self-management. Sometimes if I try to figure out what's 4 moves ahead, it paralyzes me in fear. It paralyzes me with anxiety because I know what I cannot know. And I have to be able to appropriate that in my own life and be able to say, yeah, here are the things that I know. Here are the things that I cannot know. But now I'm going to make my next wise move. Not my 10 moves from now, not my 5 moves from now, just my next wise move. And so today, for the next few minutes, I want to talk about the second word, the next wise move. Next wise move. What is wisdom? Think about that for a second. What is wisdom? What's making a wise move? And I'm going to try to answer 3 questions about wisdom today. One is, what is wisdom with respect to time? 2, what is wisdom with respect to our time in history? And 3, what is wisdom with respect to my time today? So 1, what is wisdom with respect to time? 2, what is wisdom with respect to our time in history? And then 3, what is wisdom with respect to my time today? And if we understand these 3 questions, then I think we'll be able to make our next wise move. And man, we'll be navigating ourselves, not just being dragged here and there by our day or by the next chaotic situation, but we'll be steering ourselves well through the weeds of work. We'll be making our next wise move, one right after the other. We'll put together the life that we always hoped for. We'll put together the work that we wanted to have meaning instead of just, always feeling like, surely there's more. So 1, what's wisdom with respect to time? And if I won't bore you with a lot of names, but a lot of the philosophers will say that the reason we have to search for wisdom, the reason we look for wisdom is because we know that our lives are finite. Our lives will come to an end. And so that's what they say, that ultimately death is coming. So we know there's only a limited amount of time in our entire lives. And so all of the little times when we run out of time is ultimately pointing to that one time at the end of our lives where death is imminent. We are going to die. We know that's true. And so what some of the philosophers will say is the reason that maybe we try to figure out what to do with our day is because we know the day is going to end. And the reason it's so important, or the reason it pulls at us so much, is because ultimately we know that life is going to end. And so the reason that we maybe mourn the day that we graduate high school, because we know high school is over. What the philosophers will say is sometimes really what we're mourning is our own death. We're really thinking about the time when our life is over, and that's why the end of high school hits us so hard. And so with respect to time, we know we have a limited amount of time, whether it's to finish high school, whether it's to finish college, whether it's to finish a project that we're working on right now in our work, whether it's to make an impact in our community around us. We know that we only have a certain amount of time. And so wisdom with respect to time is just knowing what to do with our moments. Wisdom is knowing what is the best use of every single moment. That's making your next wise move, is knowing that we exist in time. I love how Stephen Covey said time management is a misnomer. It's mislabeled. So we actually don't manage time. We manage ourselves in time, according to Stephen Covey. I couldn't agree more. You don't manage time, you manage yourself in time. So that's why we're learning to make our next wise move. We're learning to be great self-managers because we know we can't manage time. Time marches on. But what we know is that we have a limited amount of time, and so wisdom with respect to time is knowing what to do with each of the moments that we've been given. Knowing what's the best use of each of those moments. So that's wisdom with respect to time. Wisdom with respect to our time or our culture. I want to think about this because, there's an author that, again, I won't just name drop like crazy on you, but, with respect to our time over other times in history, wisdom for the ancients, for the people that you read about long time ago, the old philosophers. See, wisdom for them was actually aligning themselves with what was true and real. What is real about the world, and as I align myself with those things, then I become wise. But then when magic came around, and then today science, we decided it's not that we want to align ourselves with what's real. We want to learn to align the world with what we actually want. Do you see the difference? See, that the ancient philosophers thought that wisdom was aligning me with what was real and true. And so what you needed was to get wisdom. You needed to align yourself with the world. But today it's a little different. We think what we need is to align the world with what we think. And so what we need is a scientific method or even a technique. What we need is to be able to say, here are 4 steps that you can make, and if you do these 4 things, then you'll have all the money you can spend. You've heard this before. Actually, you can scroll through Facebook and see it really, really quick. There's a lot of ads like this. Here's the technique that you need, and then you can just move heaven and earth to be able to just put it right where you want it. Does that ever frustrate you? See, the ancients knew that was not actually the case. And sometimes I do admit there's a lot of people who have gained a lot of success. A lot of people have gained a lot more success than me. And at the very same time, a lot of those people, if they could recreate that success so easily, they wouldn't be trying to sell you a course. They'd be actually just going out and doing it again. Because the truth is, wisdom is different than a technique. We know that sometimes there are circumstances that happened around our success that we couldn't even control. And so I know that's not as glamorous, it's not as sexy, but wisdom is not a technique. Wisdom is aligning myself with what is real and true about the world until I have a deep and a rich understanding. I'm somebody who people want to talk to. Where people want to hear their opinion. It's not just, hey, if you do what I did, you can have the results that I had. Because we know that that's not always the case. There are these principles to live by, and they actually work. If you are lazy, you will actually come to poverty. If you are a hard worker, then you'll have all that you need. Yes, those principles are absolutely true, but we also know that if you work hard, sometimes you'll still not have the same success of somebody else who worked just as hard as you. So there's little caveats to wisdom. So wisdom with respect to our time, right now it's a countercultural. It's against the grain of culture to say I'm going to go and try to make my next wise move instead of I want to make my next perfect move. See, a lot of times what we want right now is we want to make our next perfect move. And that's why we're paralyzed. That's why work is frustrating. That's why our career choices are very frustrating, because what we really want is our next perfect move. And we think if somebody would just give us a technique, or if somebody would give us the right information, man, we could move. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. When wisdom is very different than that. Wisdom is making our next wise move. Wisdom is actually aligning ourselves with what's real about the world around us, and then learning to take our next step, not our next 20 steps, but our next step. That's wisdom with respect to our time. It's countercultural. It's against the grain to go try to make our next wise move instead of just give me a technique to make all my dreams come true. In the long run, I'm confident that making our next wise move is going to bring us to the place we wanted to be the whole time, rather than trying to get a technique that just gives us what we want tomorrow. You know that's smoke and mirrors. Don't buy it. Don't buy that. It's smoke and mirrors. Number 3 is, what is wisdom with respect to my time today? And again, my time is finite. My time will end today. Not just my life will end, but today I'll have moments that I can spend time. And so that's a lot of times what we're asking ourselves. What is the best use of my next 30 minutes? What is, if I have reached out to someone about a product that I sell, when should I go and follow up with that person? Should I just let them call me back? Or should I follow up tomorrow? Should I follow up 3 days from now? Should I follow up a week from now? Should I follow up at all? See, these questions, 80% of our lives, we don't answer moral questions. It's not right or wrong to follow up tomorrow or 3 days from now. It's not right or wrong to put our kids on a Zoom call today if we're in education. It's not right or wrong to say, today we're going to use Zoom, or today I'm going to send out a packet of information and ask them to work through the packet of information on their own and then, get back to me. This is not right or wrong. This is not a moral decision. What that is it's a wisdom decision. There is no perfect answer in the moment, but as we make these decisions, we actually get better at them over time as we make them. And so wisdom with respect to my own time is knowing what to do with those next 30 minutes. It's knowing how to spend my next day, how to spend my next week, how to spend my next month or my next 3 years. And so what we do, I want us to make a plan. I want us to look at our time and say, how do we schedule out our next week, our next month, our next 3 years? But then we need to ask the question, in this moment, what is my next wise move? I want 3 years from now, here's where I want to be. Here's where I want my business to be. Here are the numbers that I want to hit. 3 years from now, this is what I want to have accomplished. And then work all the way back to what is my next wise move. See, wisdom with respect to my time is knowing what to do with each of those moments, every one of those moments, to make the most of those moments, because I know they're not going to last. Again, that's what we know, is our moments are not going to last forever. And so what we're asking is, how do we make our next wise move? Thank you so much for listening to the Hands-Free Drive to Work. I hope this helps you make your next wise move. Leave some comments. Let's have some conversation about this. One, if you know, tag somebody who you know who's a great self-manager. And let's keep this conversation going about making our next wise move. Become great self-managers. Thank you for listening to the Hands-Free Drive to Work.